Captain Jace Hart had seen many battles, but nothing prepared him for this. He sat in the cockpit of his fighter ship, the Starblade, listening to the soft hum of the engines. His hands tightened around the controls as the royal comms crackled to life. "Captain Hart," the Queen's voice said, steady but with a tremor of worry. "My daughter, Princess Lyra, has been taken. We need you to bring her back, safely." Jace felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The Queen's words were heavy, not just because of duty but because he knew the stakes. This was not just another mission. A child's life depended on him. He had lost comrades, friends, and civilians in the past. Each loss had left a mark, a weight he carried silently. But this time, he would not fail. He refused to. He looked at the small holographic display of the nebula, where the pirates had hidden their base. Stars shone faintly through the dense gas clouds. It looked impossible even from space. But humans were never supposed to follow the easy path. Jace had always known that courage and quick thinking could overcome even the deadliest odds. He would need both now, and more. The fleet command had given him limited support. No reinforcements, no backup fighters. It was a test of skill, intuition, and sheer will. The pirates were notorious across the outer rim, feared for their cunning and ruthlessness. They had no reason to treat a child with mercy. Jace's mind raced, imagining the princess trapped in some cold cell, frightened, perhaps crying. He clenched his jaw. Every human instinct inside him screamed, "Save her, no matter the cost." He went through his checklist, checking shields, weapons, and life support. Every panel and switch seemed to echo his heartbeat. Flying solo into enemy territory was dangerous, but it was also an honor. He had trained for moments like this his entire life, and now the test was real. Before entering hyperspace, he whispered to himself, "For her. For humanity." It was a mantra, simple but strong. Memories of his past failures flickered briefly in his mind. Friends lost in ambushes, civilians trapped in crossfire. But he pushed them aside. Those ghosts were reminders, not chains. He would not let fear or doubt control him. The jump into hyperspace shook the cockpit. Stars stretched into long lines of light, and Jace felt a surge of focus. Alone, he was nothing. But as a human pilot, with instincts honed over countless missions, he was a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy had underestimated humans before. He would make sure the pirates did not make the same mistake. As he traveled, Jace thought about Princess Lyra. She was small, maybe no older than 8 or 9, with a curious mind and a kind heart. The Queen had told him stories of her bravery and small acts, helping injured animals, comforting frightened staff, learning about distant worlds. This was no ordinary child. She had courage, even if she did not yet know it. He would make sure she survived to grow into it. Time seemed to stretch as he approached the nebula. The deeper he went, the darker and more treacherous it became. Floating rocks and electrical storms could tear a ship apart in seconds. But Jace felt alive in the chaos. Fear was there, yes, but it sharpened his senses, made his reactions faster. This was the crucible where humans often shone brightest. Finally, as the nebula clouds swallowed the stars, he steadied his ship. Ahead lay the unknown fortress of the pirates. Jace's heart pounded, not just with fear, but with purpose. Somewhere inside that fortress, Princess Lyra waited. And he was the only one who could bring her back. He took a deep breath, fingers tightening on the controls once more. The Starblade would carry them both through danger, through fire, and through darkness. Jace Hart was ready. Whatever awaited him inside that fortress, he would face it. Because a human never abandons the innocent, And a human fighter never gives up. With a final glance at the fading stars behind him, Jace whispered again, "Hold on, Princess. I'm coming." The nebula was a wall of shadows and swirling gas, hiding dangers at every turn. Captain Jace's heart slowed the Starblade, letting the ship glide silently among jagged rocks and electric storms. His sensors picked up movement, small, fast drones circling the perimeter of the pirate base. They were weak compared to a fighter, but their numbers made them dangerous. One wrong move and they could shred his ship. Jace's eyes narrowed. He remembered what his instructor once told him. The key is patience. Let them come to you, then strike where they least expect it. He nodded to himself, holding the controls steady. The hum of the engines and the soft beep of his sensors became his world. Nothing else mattered. Not fear, not doubt. Only the mission. As he approached the asteroid fortress, the outline of jagged walls and turrets loomed from the nebula's gloom. It was more massive than intelligence reports suggested, built like a spider's web of metal and defense systems. His stomach tightened. Thousands of lives had been lost in assaults on smaller bases. But Jace refused to consider failure. Princess Lyra was counting on him. The first wave of drone fighters zoomed past, their metal bodies gleaming faintly under the nebula's dim light. Jace's reflexes were sharp. He dodged, rolled, and fired precise bursts, taking down the first few without losing speed. He could hear the faint clatter of impacts against the hull, but his shields held firm. Each shot he fired brought him closer to the child he had promised to save. The second wave was faster, more coordinated. Jace's heart raced. He leaned forward, instincts taking over. Humans had a reputation for being reckless, but it was calculated recklessness, born of courage and quick thinking. He zipped through gaps in the enemy formation, weaving in and out of fire, feeling the thrill and terror of the fight at the same time. After what felt like an eternity, he saw it. The hidden hangar where the pirates had stashed their stolen ships. There were no guards outside. He blinked, unsure if it was a trap. Then he remembered the mantra he had whispered before jumping into the nebula. For her. For humanity. He pushed forward. The hangar doors creaked as he slipped inside, the darkness swallowing him. Sensors detected movement in the shadows. He switched off his external lights, letting the stealth systems guide him. Every step, every turn could reveal his presence. The pirates were clever, but humans were unpredictable. He had trained for moments like this. Then he heard it. A faint, soft whimper. It was almost lost among the mechanical echoes of the hangar, but Jace recognized it immediately. His heart leapt. Princess Lyra. He followed the sound, creeping through the maze of corridors. Crates and broken machinery littered the floor, making movement difficult, but he moved carefully, every step measured. Then around a corner he saw her, small, fragile, her eyes wide with fear. She clutched a blanket to her chest, trembling. "Princess Lyra," he said gently, kneeling to her level. His voice was calm, but strong. "It's okay. I'm here to take you home." Her eyes searched his, a mixture of doubt and hope. Slowly she took a hesitant step forward. Are you really going to save me?" she whispered. Jace smiled faintly, reaching out his hand. "I promised," he said. "And I never break a promise." She clung to his arm, small hands trembling against his jacket. He felt a surge of protectiveness unlike anything he had ever experienced. This was no longer a mission. It was personal. Every pirate in the fortress, every obstacle, every danger, they would not touch her. Not while he lived. Jace's mind raced as he led her through the shadowed corridors. Alarms would sound eventually. Pirates would come. But for now, in the stillness and darkness, there was a fragile moment of trust, and he would carry it through hell itself if he had to. He glanced back at the hangar doors, taking a mental note of exits and cover points. There was no room for mistakes. Every step forward was a step toward life, toward safety, toward fulfilling a promise. The shadows of the nebula surrounded them, but Jace's heart was unafraid. He had a mission, he had a purpose, and most importantly, he had someone to protect. Jace's heart moved quickly through the shadowed corridors, Princess Lyra's small hand gripping his arm tightly. Every step echoed off the metal walls, a reminder that the pirates could be around any corner. The soft whimper of fear from the girl behind him strengthened his resolve. He could not and would not let anything happen to her. Suddenly, the alarms blared shrill and urgent, lighting the corridors with red strobes. The pirates had discovered them. Jace's heart thumped, but he stayed calm. Training and instinct took over. He knelt behind a pile of crates as the first group of pirates rounded the corner, blasters raised. With precise, controlled bursts, he fired, taking down 3 before the others even realized what was happening. "Stay close," he whispered to Lyra, shielding her body with his own as he moved forward. Her small arms clung to him, trembling, but her eyes showed trust, a fragile, shining trust that filled Jace with determination. He had never protected anyone like this before. Every mission had stakes, yes, but this was different. This was a child's life. This was a promise. They ran down a narrow corridor, turning and ducking as pirates fired from above and around them. Sparks flew from the walls where shots hit, and smoke began to fill the hall. The heat and noise pressed against them, but Jace's mind was focused on one thing: get her out alive. He had trained for stealth, for speed, for combat, but nothing had prepared him for the emotional weight of seeing her frightened eyes and hearing her rapid breaths. "Almost there," he muttered, scanning ahead. The hangar doors glimmered faintly in the distance. It was close now, but so were the pirates. They were faster than he expected, better organized. Jace took a deep breath, knowing there was only one way to make it out safely. He reached the hangar bay just as a group of pirates blocked the exit. Blaster fire erupted and the sound of metal ricocheting filled the bay. Jace dodged, rolled, and fired using every ounce of his human reflexes. Humans were unpredictable and he used it to his advantage, moving in patterns the pirates could not anticipate. Each shot, each maneuver brought them closer to freedom. Lyra pressed herself against him, her small body shaking, but her grip on his arm was firm. "I'm scared," she whispered. Jace knelt quickly, keeping his weapon ready. "I know," he said softly, "but you're safe with me. I won't let anything happen to you. Trust me, okay?" Her eyes flickered with fear, then with a tiny spark of courage. She nodded. That small gesture made Jace's chest tighten. This child's trust was sacred and he would carry it through fire and death itself. Finally, they reached the Starblade. Jace scanned the ship's interior quickly. The systems were damaged but functional. He guided Lyra into the cockpit and started the engines. The roar filled the hangar, and sparks flew from the nearby walls as the pirates continued their assault. "Hold on," Jace shouted. He slammed the throttle and the ship lifted off just as the first blasts hit the floor where they had stood moments ago. The hangar shook violently, debris flying, but the small fighter pierced through the smoke and darkness, leaving destruction behind. Enemy fighters swarmed around them as they cleared the asteroid, blasters cutting through the void of space. Jace's hands moved instinctively, dodging, rolling, firing. Each maneuver was precise, calculated, and fearless. The pirates were good, but humans had a stubbornness and ingenuity that could not be predicted. Lyra's grip on his arm loosened slightly as the adrenaline faded, replaced by relief. "You saved me," she said, voice trembling. Jace allowed himself a small smile, though his focus never wavered. "No," he said softly. "We saved each other, and we're not safe yet, but we're getting there." As the Starblade soared into the safety of open space, leaving the nebula and pirates behind, Jace felt a rare, deep sense of satisfaction. They had survived the impossible together, and for the first time in a long while, he understood something more important than victory or medals. He looked at the small, frightened girl beside him and thought, this moment of trust, courage, and life was what made humans strong. Not technology, not strategy, but heart, and heart Jace knew could move mountains. The stars stretched endlessly outside the cockpit, a silent witness to Jace Hart's careful piloting. The Starblade had survived the treacherous escape from the pirate base, but Jace knew they weren't truly safe until Princess Lyra was back in the palace. The girl sat beside him, quiet and exhausted, her small hands resting on her lap. Every now and then she glanced up at him, eyes wide with a mixture of fear, awe, and trust. Jace kept his focus on the navigation controls, but he could feel her presence beside him like a fragile heartbeat that needed protection. "Almost there," he said softly, trying to reassure both of them. "The palace. We're almost home." Lyra's lips trembled, and for a moment her small shoulders shook as she let out a quiet sigh. I thought no one would come," she admitted. Her voice was faint, almost lost in the hum of the ship. Jace's chest tightened. "I'm here, and I won't leave you." His voice was calm but firm. He remembered the fear in her eyes when he had first found her in the dark corridors of the pirate base. That fear had turned into fragile trust, and now it was his mission to honor it. The journey back was tense but quiet. The pirates had been left far behind, and the nebula's clouds now only reflected distant starlight. Jace allowed himself a small moment of relief, but he knew better than to celebrate too soon. They were still vulnerable in open space. One miscalculation, one stray attack, and everything could be lost. Finally, the twin suns of the home system appeared on the horizon. The royal palace gleamed beneath their light, a beacon of warmth and safety. Jace felt a rush of determination. They were close now. He maneuvered the Starblade carefully through the palace defenses, which recognized his ship's signature and allowed him through without challenge. The landing bay was filled with royal guards and aides, all waiting anxiously. The Queen herself stepped forward, her face pale with worry but illuminated with hope as she saw the small, fragile figure of her daughter running toward her. Lyra's legs moved faster as she broke free from Jace's protective side, and the moment she reached the Queen, she flung herself into her mother's arms. "Lyra, my baby," the Queen whispered, tears streaming freely. She held her daughter close, her hands trembling as if she could never let go. Lyra buried her face against her mother's shoulder, sobbing quietly but safely. Jace remained back, standing slightly apart, his chest tight with emotion he couldn't easily name. He had saved many lives before, but none had felt as personal, as urgent as this one. This child, this small, courageous human being, had entrusted her life to him, and he had not failed. The Queen turned slowly, her eyes shining as they met Jace's. "Captain Hart," she said, her voice filled with gratitude and awe. "You have done what no one else could. You brought my daughter back to me alive. I cannot thank you enough." Jace nodded, brushing off the praise. Words felt insufficient. He had no need for medals or titles, only the knowledge that she was safe. And yet there was something quietly powerful in the Queen's recognition. A reminder that courage and humanity were seen, even across stars. Lyra peeked from behind her mother, her small eyes meeting Jace's. There was a faint smile on her lips, a mixture of relief and wonder. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible but filled with sincerity. Jace felt a lump in his throat. He knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "You're welcome, Princess. But remember, it was your courage, too. You stayed strong even when it was scary." Lyra's smile widened, a fragile light in the aftermath of danger. Jace rose, watching his mother and daughter reunited. He knew that no words could fully capture this moment. No medal could honor it properly. The mission had been more than duty. It had been about trust, courage, and the value of life itself. As the royal guard secured the area and the palace slowly returned to calm, Jace stepped back, letting the two of them have their moment. Inside, he felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. It was a quiet, human warmth, the feeling of having done exactly what needed to be done against all odds and succeeded. The princess was safe. Humanity had shown its courage. And Captain Jay's heart, he had made a difference. The palace was calm now, but the air still carried the echoes of worry and fear from earlier. Captain Jay's heart remained standing in the landing bay, watching Princess Lyra reunited with her mother. The queen held her daughter close, her eyes red from tears, her voice soft and trembling as she whispered words only a mother could. Jace felt a tightness in his chest, a mixture of relief and emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel. After a moment, the queen turned to him, her regal expression softening into something warmer. "Captain Hart," she said, stepping closer, "you risked everything to save my daughter. Words cannot express my gratitude, but I hope this can convey a part of it." She held out a small object in her hand. It shimmered faintly in the golden light of the palace bay. Jace leaned forward, curious. The object was a pendant, delicate and simple, yet there was a quiet beauty to it that drew him in. He took it gently, turning it over in his hands. The glow seemed to pulse softly, almost alive, and warmth spread from the pendant into his palms. "It is beautiful," he murmured, unsure of what to say. He had been given medals before, awards and titles, but this felt different. Personal, meaningful, alive. "It is more than beauty," the queen said softly. "It is a symbol of trust, courage, and life. It carries the blessings of our people and the protection of our guardians. It will shield you, guide you, and remind you of what is truly important." Jace's eyes met hers, and for the first time in a long while, he felt completely seen. Not as a soldier, not as a fighter, not as a human in the galaxy, just as someone who had acted with honor and heart. The gift was more than protection. It was recognition, connection, and gratitude, all wrapped in something small enough to hold in his hands. Princess Lyra stepped forward, shyly reaching out her small hand. "Captain, I want you to keep it," she said softly, her voice quivering but firm, "so you remember me, and that you saved me." Jace felt his throat tighten, the sincerity in her eyes, the fragile trust she had placed in him. It struck him deeper than any battle, any medal, or any victory he had ever known. He knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "I will, Princess," he said, voice low, steady, but full of emotion. "I promise. I will never forget you, and I will never forget this." Lyra's tiny hand pressed against his chest, and for a moment the war-hardened pilot allowed himself to simply feel. Fear, tension, and adrenaline melted away, leaving something pure. Connection. He realized then that bravery was not just about fighting enemies. It was about protecting those who could not protect themselves, about carrying hope and trust into dangerous places. The queen watched silently, her eyes shining. She understood what the pendant meant, not just as a gift, but as a bond. "Captain Hart," she said again, her voice soft but full of authority, "you have done humanity proud today, not just in your skill but in your heart. You have shown what it means to be human and what humans are capable of." Jay straightened, feeling a strange mix of humility and pride. Humans were often underestimated across the galaxy, reckless, emotional, fragile. But moments like this, moments of courage and compassion, were what made them extraordinary. And today he had proven that. He looked at Princess Lyra once more, the small, brave girl who had trusted him in the darkest corridors of a pirate base, and felt a swell of emotion. "I won't let you down," he said softly. "Not now, not ever." Lyra smiled, a small light in her exhausted face. "I know," she whispered. For a long moment the three of them stood together, the queen, her daughter, and the human fighter pilot who had risked everything. Words were unnecessary. The pendant glimmered faintly in Jace's hand, a reminder of courage, trust, and the power of humanity. And in that quiet moment, Captain Jace Hart understood something he had never fully realized before. Sometimes, the greatest victories are not won in battle, but in saving lives, earning trust, and forging connections that no enemy could ever break. The gift was small, but its meaning was immense. And for Jace Hart it was a memory, a symbol, and a promise that would never fade. The news of the daring rescue spread quickly across the galaxy. Reports of Captain Jace Hart saving Princess Lyra from the pirate fortress reached every corner of the outer systems. Humans, long underestimated by other species, were suddenly recognized not just for their courage in battle, but for their ingenuity, determination, and heart. Jace sat quietly in the palace quarters, the glowing pendant resting against his chest. Outside, the palace gardens shimmered under twin suns, a peaceful contrast to the chaos of the mission. He traced the pendant with his fingers, feeling the warmth it gave off, and remembered Lyra's small, trembling hands and trusting eyes. This was what had mattered most. Not the recognition, not the story headlines. What mattered was that he had kept his promise. For the first time in years, Jace allowed himself to reflect on the weight of humanity. Other species were powerful and advanced, but humans had something unique. They were resilient. They fought not only with technology, but with courage, with hope, and with a stubborn determination that refused to give up. That determination had carried him through the nebula, through the corridors filled with pirates, and out into open space with Lyra safe at his side. The Queen had invited him to dine privately in the royal hall. She spoke of gratitude, of pride, and of hope for the future. Her words were sincere, not ceremonial. "Captain Hart," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "today you have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. Your courage is not just skill, it is heart. It is compassion. It is the reason why life thrives even in the darkest corners of space." Jace nodded silently, understanding fully the weight of her words. He had fought, yes, but he had fought for something far greater than victory. He had fought for trust, for life, for the fragile thread of hope that connected him to a small child who believed in him when all else had failed. In the days that followed, ambassadors from different worlds reached out to the palace. They wanted to understand how a single human fighter had achieved what their fleets could not. Jace remained humble. He did not seek fame. He knew that humans were underestimated, but he also knew that their greatest strength lay in moments like this. Moments when they chose to act with courage, when they chose to protect life, and when they refused to give in to fear. Lyra visited him often. She would bring small gifts she had made herself, drawings of stars and ships, little tokens of trust and friendship. Each visit reminded him why he had risked everything, why he had pushed through fear, and why humans, despite their fragility, were capable of greatness. One evening, as the twin suns set and painted the sky with gold and crimson, Jace walked through the palace gardens, pendant glowing softly against his chest. He thought about the future, about humanity's place among the stars, about the challenges that still lay ahead. But he also thought about the quiet moments like this one, when courage and heart met in the smallest gestures, creating ripples that could change the galaxy. He realized that heroism was not defined by warships or battles alone. It was defined by action, by compassion, by the willingness to put oneself in danger to protect another. That truth had carried him through the pirate base, through the firefight, and into the arms of the grateful Queen and her daughter. That truth would guide him in every mission to come. As he watched Lyra play near the fountain, her laughter echoing softly across the gardens, Jace felt a rare peace settle within him. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but moments like this reminded him of the light that humans could carry even into darkness. The pendant pulsed gently, as if affirming that truth, and he held it closer, a silent promise to continue protecting life and hope wherever he went. Captain Jace Hart had saved a princess, but he had also shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. brave, resilient, compassionate, and unstoppable when driven by heart. And in that quiet, glowing moment, he understood something essential. Humanity's edge was not in their weapons or fleets, but in their courage to act when it mattered most. Weeks had passed since the daring rescue, yet the memory of the mission lingered in Jace's heart's mind like a steady hum beneath his thoughts. The galaxy had acknowledged humanity's courage, and messages of respect and admiration had come from worlds far and wide. Still, Jace remained humble. He had no desire for fame or medals. His reward had been far simpler and far more meaningful. Princess Lyra often visited him in the palace gardens, her laughter carrying across the fountains and flower beds like music. Jace had come to cherish those visits. She was growing braver each day, yet there was still a spark of the fragility he had seen in the pirate base. That fragility had transformed into trust, and it was something Jace intended to protect for as long as he could. One quiet afternoon, Lyra tugged at his hand, her small face lit with excitement. "Come with me," she said, her eyes sparkling. Jace followed her through winding paths under arches of flowering vines, until they reached a small aviary where birds of strange, iridescent feathers danced in the sunlight. Lyra's joy was infectious, and even Jace, the hardened fighter pilot, allowed himself to smile freely. "Look at them, Captain," Lyra whispered. "Aren't they beautiful?" "They are," Jace replied, watching the birds flutter and glide in synchronized patterns. "Just like life. Fragile but strong when it matters." Lyra giggled and leaned against him, her hand warm against his arm. Jace felt a quiet contentment he had not known in years. Saving her had been dangerous, terrifying, exhausting, but these peaceful moments were the real reward. He realized then that heroism was not just measured in battle or victory. It was measured in protection, in care, in trust earned and kept. That night, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Jace stood alone on a balcony overlooking the palace grounds. The pendant the queen had given him glowed softly against his chest. Its warmth reminded him of Lyra's small hand in his, of the courage he had seen in her eyes, and of the promise he had made to protect, to serve, to never abandon those who depended on him. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Captain Hart?" Lyra stepped onto the balcony, her tiny form silhouetted against the fading light. "I wanted to say thank you." Again, Jace knelt slightly, meeting her gaze. "You don't have to thank me, Princess," he said gently. "We both did our part. You were brave too. I just helped along the way." Lyra's eyes sparkled with unshed tears. "I trust you," she whispered. "Always." For the first time in years, Jace felt the full weight and warmth of that trust. It was a connection deeper than any medal, more meaningful than any recognition. He realized that protecting life, earning trust, and acting with courage, that was what defined humanity. That was their edge, their strength in a galaxy filled with dangers and uncertainty. The stars began to emerge one by one, and Jace felt a quiet resolve settle within him. The galaxy was vast, full of threats and adventures yet unseen. There would be wars, disasters, and crises that required humans to rise as they always had. And he would be ready, carrying the light of courage, hope, and humanity with him. Lyra leaned against him once more, her small hand brushing against the pendant. "You're my hero," she said softly. Jace smiled, feeling a lump in his throat. "No, Princess," he said. "You're mine too. You reminded me why humans fight. Not for glory, not for medals, but for life, and for each other." Together they watched the twin suns set completely, leaving the sky painted in shades of violet and gold. The pendant glimmered faintly in the dim light, a promise and a reminder. Captain Jace Hart had faced darkness, danger, and fear, and emerged not only victorious, but human in the truest sense, courageous, compassionate, and unyielding. In the quiet of that evening, with Princess Lyra safe and the galaxy waiting beyond the stars, Jace understood something essential. The story was not over. It was only the beginning. A human could survive anything. A human could shine in the darkest night. And a human could protect hope, life, and trust, no matter how far the stars stretched. And so Captain Jay's heart smiled, his heart full, ready for whatever adventures awaited, knowing that he was exactly where he was meant to be.